Steve Irwin's daughter made a heartbreaking confession that has fans in tears. Crikey, Steve Irwin was the greatest. His irresistible bravado, hyperactivity, and thick Aussie accent made him easy to imitate and impossible to forget. It's been over a decade since the death of her father, and now adult Bindi has found her own fame. So when she got engaged to her own khaki-clad conservationist, Bindi shared a tearful confession about the man she called Dad. For a younger generation of animal-obsessed kids, Bindi Irwin has the same fiery, easy-to-love, yet wildly daring personality that her father had. The kind of presence that reaches through the television and makes you pay attention. The 21-year-old has followed in her father's footsteps as a conservationist and public figure. From before she could talk, she was toddling after her energetic dad as he tussled around with massive crocodiles and other creatures that would make an average Joe pee their pants. Steve was always the opposite of average. Steve Irwin was the crocodile hunter, though he was less predator and more of a massive fanboy. He was a dedicated conservationist with a contagious infatuation for animals. The gnarlier, the better. The world fell for his enthusiasm, foolhardiness, and quotable catchphrases. Arm in arm with his wife Terry, they immersed themselves in conservation efforts. Quickly, their television shows propelled Steve to household name status all over the world. They channeled their magnetic energy into the family business, Australia Zoo. Celebrity didn't interest Steve unless he could use it to help protect creatures that he loved so much. His authenticity was palpable. Seen in his cries of crikey and willingness to wrestle with deadly animals, he had a singular focus for that unbridled energy, and it all shifted after having kids. On July 24, 1998, Steve and Terry welcomed their first child, a daughter they named after Steve's favorite saltwater croc, Bindi. Holding his daughter brought forward a new motivation for the crocodile hunter. As he described it, Bindi was the reason he was put on Earth. A few years later, Terry and Steve had their son, Robert. The norm for the Irwins was crowding around a crocodile or snuggling up with some snakes. For Steve, sharing the joys of nature with his kids watching their passions for animals blossom was as good as it could get, but it was tragically cut short. While filming the show Ocean's Deadliest, Steve and his crew were just off the coast of Bat Reef in Queensland. Steve snorkeling in the shallows, capturing the rear view of a short-tailed stingray. It raised its barbed tail and struck Steve hundreds of times in mere seconds. At first, it looked like Steve might be okay, but the barb had pierced his heart. They rushed him to the hospital where he died from blood loss. The shock was brutal. As the news swept the globe, everyone collectively mourned the ever-vivacious, brave, and seemingly invincible man, the crocodile hunter. When Terry met Steve, her first impression was that he presented as a superhero. His loss sucked the wind out of their family. In their grief, they knew the world wanted to say goodbye, so after a private funeral, a public memorial service was held at Australia Zoo. Over 300 million people tuned in. Australian celebrities attended, like Russell Crowe, and there was even a remembrance from the Prime Minister. Still, the most tear-jerking moment was the eulogy delivered by little Bindi, who spoke of how much she would miss her greatest hero. In her eulogy, Bindi set the tone for what they planned to do in Steve's absence. The Irwins intended to continue inspiring others through conservation work and encouraging people to appreciate wildlife. They walked the walk. Terry picked up the torch and ran with it, expanding the exhibits at Australia Zoo. When not making plans to grow the attraction, Terry helmed their foundation, Wildlife Warriors. Donations poured in after Steve's death, allowing them to launch key research initiatives proudly represented by their new public face, Bindi. The 8-year-old continued on as the on-screen talent in the family, starring in her own nature documentary show for children called Bindi the Jungle Girl. She inherited the natural charisma from Steve, leading to a slew of TV and film opportunities. In 2015, Bindi joined the other celebrities competing on the 21st season of Dancing with the Stars. Week after week, Bindi showcased off her prowess on the dance floor, occasionally honoring her father in the process. She snatched the victor's title and many hearts, but there was only one heart she was interested in. It was an American professional wakeboarder named Chandler Powell that caught Bindi's eye. While leading a tour of Australia Zoo, Bindi met Chandler and his family in 2013. They stayed in touch, swapping letters and phone calls, until they made their relationship public in 2015. Chandler made the transition to a mostly khaki lifestyle by 2018, moving across the world to work for Australia Zoo. By that point, he was already considered part of the Irwin family, though his dedication to wildlife conservation gave him the final stamp of approval. On Bindi's 21st birthday, Chandler got down on one knee and asked if she'd be his croc wrestling partner for life. She said yes. Chandler certainly knew the way to her heart, by popping the question in the gardens of Australia Zoo, with Robert hiding in the bushes to snap pictures. Working Robert into the proposal meant the world to Bindi. The tight-knit Irwins learned to appreciate the moments they got together, never forgetting that Steve wasn't there to witness them too. Bindi posted a slew of engagement photos in celebration, and one brought the feels back to the surface. She penned an open letter to her father. Rather than raking through the what-ifs and the should-haves, Bindi wrote about how proud her dad would be of her brother Robert. He's always stepped up and been the one to give me a hug when I needed it and encouraged me to move forward in life. So it made sense that he was the only person capable of filling her father's shoes on her big day. Bindi wrote, "He will definitely be the one to walk me down the aisle, and I think that's what Dad would have wanted as well." Crikey, mate, where are the tissues? There's no doubt that Steve would be incredibly proud of Robert and Bindi. He was known to gush about how transformative becoming a father was for his life, and knowing his children continued with his work in conservation, by his own admission, was his greatest dream. Please feel free to share this with your friends.